Okay, well, before we hear from Jason about forward justice, we want to fill you in on some of the campaigns, the Third Act campaigns, and what the actions, what's been going on. And we're going to start with Karen Bearden from the Democratizing Energy.
Howdy, y'all. Grateful to have so many new faces tonight. That's great. Another reminder that you can submit a comment to the North Carolina Utility Commission about Duke Energy's proposed carbon plan. Let them know you want Duke to invest in renewable energy, not more gas and nuclear. I will include all the links after I finish talking. And then beginning tomorrow, the North Carolina Utility Commission will hold evidentiary hearings on the carbon plan that will probably last through next week. And you can attend in person in Raleigh or watch online at the North Carolina Utility Commission's YouTube channel that I will include in the chat. And then there's also a witness list and schedule for the evidentiary hearings, and I will also include that in the chat. Not surprising, you'll see Duke Energy has gobs of time to speak, gobs of time. Back in February, Jason Torian was our guest speaker from the Blue Ridge Environmental Defense League, and he spoke with us about the proposed Mariah Energy Center. And there is a public hearing on the Mariah Energy Center draft air quality permit on August the 1st in Henderson. And I'll include the address for the hearing and where you can also send in your comments. On April 30th, you can join Power and 7 Directions of Service online for the program Colonialism and the Climate Crisis, film screening of Quaker Run wildfire and discussion on the rights of nature. And our next month's roundtable, we will hear more about the rights of nature and the proposed Southeast Supply Enhancement Project from Casey with 7 Directions of Service. As we're meeting tonight, they are having a community hearing right now in Kernersville with the impacted landowners and others. And so by the time the email goes out with the follow-up for this roundtable, I will have an updated petition that I will be able to share with you to stop the terrible Transco Southeast Supply Enhancement Project. And of course, for those of you that have been on here for a long time, I always mention the Mountain Valley Pipeline that unfortunately went into service last month. But I'm going to share a link where you can send a message to the banks to stop funding the pipeline. I will also include Deborah Kushner's latest Appalachian crime scene called MVP One Very Bad Actor. And I am double booked for another webinar that begins at 7. So after I put stuff in the chat, I'm going to have to leave. But thanks to you all for being here. And I'm going to pass it to Rosemary, who's going to talk to us about the awesome Summer of Heat events going on. Thanks, y'all.
Yeah, that's actually going to be Rosemary tonight. So I will pass it to you.
Okay. So as many of you know, the Summer of Heat protest has been going on in New York City on Wall Street since the beginning of the summer. The focus of the summer-long protest is to bring awareness and put pressure on the big banks like Citi, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, and public pension funds to stop funding fossil fuels and to put our money into clean, renewable energy. July 8th through the 13th was Elder Week, and third actors turned out in New York City, as well as across the country with working groups holding actions. So I'm going to try to run this short video of the New York action in front of Citibank during Elder Week. So let's see how this goes.
Square miles of Canada forest burned in 2023.
1/3 of all species extinct by 2050.
1/3 of Pakistan underwater in 2023.
100,000 people in the U.S. die from heat yearly.
Can you hear the earth? She's crying. Can you hear the earth? She's dying.
Citibank, this building behind us, has poured more money into the fossil fuel industry than just about any institution on earth. They're trying to make a profit at the end of the world, and they need to stop it.
Grandmothers, grandfathers, you understand that at this moment you are fighting for humanity.
We're so hopeful that Citibank will start figuring out that what they're doing is just vandalizing the earth.
That has to stop. We're putting our bodies where our hearts and minds are.
Okay.
Do you know the story? He wouldn't. Yeah. So he wouldn't let me touch the door. Somebody had touched it after touching their penis, and
a lot of penis talk on this show.
Whoa.
Today,
what's
for
going
some
on?
reason,
is that the title of this episode?
we'll just have to have a separate little segment.
Okay. So anyway, but I didn't want to touch the door, and then they thought it was funny, and I get it. I think it's funny too to try to get me.
Okay. All right. So I think we can move on to John. With did you want to say anything more, Rosemary? Are you afraid to turn it back on? I can't. You're on mute.
Muted.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Yeah.
That just popped into another video. Yeah, I just wanted to say in North Carolina, we had 3 regions who held actions. The Triangle held a Zoom call to contact CEOs of Citibank and Bank of America. One woman shared, and then we all agreed that because people were able to make these calls together, that it was a very successful action. The Greensboro area held a theater performance event called Good Fire. They had about 40 people attending, and the first part of the evening was people schmoozing, and then they had the performance, and afterwards there were other organizations as well as third act tabling, so people could take action and get more information. Another really successful action. And then in Asheville, we had a protest action in Pritchard Park across from the Wells Fargo. We actually found out the week of the event that the Wells Fargo had moved to another location. So we made a joke that they knew we were coming. We had about 40 people, and we had a couple of great speakers, and we had our social justice band, Brass Your Heart, and some large puppets. And we took a little march around town and ended up at the Wells Fargo ATM. We got some good press coverage, and it was another successful action.
Right.
So apologies again for that. Totally inappropriate, whatever that was.
Marcia, I don't know if you can see that Jim and Ann have their hand up.
No, I can't see it.
No.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that was from before.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Okay.
So we'll go to John now to talk about democracy and voting.
Sure. Thanks, Marcia. So the big news in democracy and voting is that Third Act has set up a PAC. It's called Gray PAC. And this is really just an escalation or a new aspect or way for Third Act to be involved in this election cycle. So it's as most people probably know with PACs, it's a way to actually provide money to individual candidates or parties to support their election efforts. So it's a new tool in the toolkit, so to speak. With that comes more regulation and scrutiny and oversight. So we're figuring out what that means in terms of how the different chapters operate, but we'll figure it out. And one thing it absolutely doesn't impact is our nonpartisan efforts around voter registration, voter turnout, that sort of thing. But it is another way that Third Act can be relevant across the country and impact election cycles beyond the advocacy work we're already doing. So that's Marcia, that's the big news in voting.
Okay, thanks, John. Okay, well, now we come to the part where we have our guest speaker, and our guest speaker tonight is Jason Hicks. He works with Forward Justice and the Unlock Our Vote campaign, which is to help people who have been convicted of a felony and have served their sentence register to vote. I've known Jason for a number of years and worked with him on things generally related to the justice system and police accountability. He's a dedicated organizer whose focus on reforming the criminal justice system comes from some of his own experiences. He currently is an organizer with Forward Justice, a nonpartisan law, policy, and strategy center committed to advancing racial, social, and economic justice in the U.S. South. So I'm going to turn it over to my friend Jason.
Thank you, Marcia. Thank you. And hey, everybody, good to be here. Excited. This is my first time here, and it sounds like you guys got a lot of different things going on, which is awesome to see and hear. Looking forward to this. So, as Marcia said, my name's Jason Hicks. I'm with Forward Justice. I live in Greensboro, and my work is really focused on Greensboro currently, but we are doing work all across the state of North Carolina, and really all across the country. 2 weeks ago, we were in Philadelphia doing our training, and then let's see, this weekend we'll be in Atlanta. I can't keep up with it all, so forgive me. We'll be in Atlanta this weekend, and then next weekend we'll be in Jackson, North Carolina. And then 2 weeks from that, we'll be in Hickory. So we're all over the place. And what we're doing in those areas we are doing organizer training. So our organizing staff has been trained by Marshall Gantz of Harvard in his model of organizing. And we are taking that model and we've kind of crafted it into our own and had it certified by him, saying that it was an acceptable changes that we've made, and we are trying to organize folks, specifically folks that are directly impacted by the criminal legal system. And that is where our work with Forward Justice and Second Chance Alliance are combined. Our focus is folks that are formerly incarcerated and really working towards what folks have always viewed as low propensity voters. We see them as high opportunity. We've got in this state, there are 480,000 people that are directly impacted by the criminal legal system that are not currently registered to vote, that have been removed for a multitude of reasons, but we are working to get that 480,000 registered. Those are folks that have a felony conviction, that have served their time, being probation, parole, community service, whatever the sentence was that they received. So they fully served out that sentence. And now that's the number that we're shooting for, is the 480,000 folks. And then on top of that, if we look at just folks with a misdemeanor conviction, there's over 700,000 folks with just misdemeanor convictions that are not registered to vote. And it's worth noting that of the 480,000 folks, over 200,000 are just African American. So it speaks to the injustices within what we call it the criminal legal system instead of the criminal justice system. We refer to it as the criminal legal system. We found that to be a better word, because we firmly believe that language matters, right? So that's a big thing that's important to us, is that language. So we've got a new phone banking system that was used by the Florida Rights Restoration Coalition. I don't know if anyone here has heard of a gentleman by the name of Desmond Meade. But if you think back to the last presidential election, there was a bunch of fuss about felons voting in Florida, and there was an organization that was paying probation fees for folks that had felony convictions that were on probation, whose only criteria to get off probation was to pay those fees. Well, Desmond Meade and his organization, the Florida Rights Restoration Coalition, they were the ones that were paying those fees. And there was a bunch of fuss because they took it as they were, paying people to vote. And I guess it could be interpreted that way, but we disagree. So nonetheless, Desmond got with a guy named Al and created this fabulous software that is just amazing. It literally operates from the computer. So you use your phone to dial, but it doesn't actually, you dial one number on your phone, it blocks your number, it never shows your number to anyone, and you're just going through and you click through and it dials everybody with just a click of the mouse. So what we're hoping to do is get as many folks as we can registered through this system, because the system is so smart that if you click a button, let's say you make contact with someone, you can click a button and it says, send them a link to help them to register to vote. And it will text that person a link to their phone, and they can register to vote through the DMV services. And it sounds extremely complicated, but it's really, really easy. A lot of folks were overwhelmed when we first started having conversations about it. And then once they got into it, they were like, wow, this is easy. And they're some of the top people that make phone calls for us every week. And I was trying to listen. I was having some audio issues when I first got on. If I can share my screen, I would be glad to show what this software looks like, but I wasn't sure. I couldn't make out some of the first conversations when I got in. So
I'm trying to see if I can make you want to be a co-host then, right?
let me just see if it lets me.
Otherwise I can make you a co-host.
Let's see. Yeah, it won't let me do it.
Okay,
Right this
here,
second.
now try it. Wait a minute, let me
Right.
make you the co-host, okay.
Still not letting me. Let me see. Oh, I see why. Hold on. It's not your fault. It's my fault. Yeah, it's not going to let me do it.
Hmm.
So
Is
what I
it,
can,
is it something we're
Yeah.
controlling or what?
well, it's because of the security settings on my computer,
Oh,
and I can't change it. This is my work laptop, so I'm going to put a link in the chat that everyone will be able to click, and they can actually get kind of an idea of what it does. And I'll be able to share out a presentation. I can share it with Marcia, and she can share that around. But it's really just a real easy software to use. And the cool thing about this too is some people don't like to phone bank. Some people want to canvas. So the other thing that this software does is, let's say that Marcia and I, since we live in Greensboro, let's say that Marcia and I decide we want to canvas one day. What it will allow us to do is we can go on our cell phone and text the word doors, DOORS, to a certain phone number. And it'll ask us what zip code we're in. And let's just say, for example, we put in 27405. What it will do is it will give us it'll give Marcia and I both a list that is walkable together, and it'll split 49 doors between the two of us. And then if we want to go and do more doors, it'll give us more. Like, we just go back in and say, we want more. So it's a real simple, just a real easy software. I hate that you guys can't see it.
Do you
So
want
if
us
you-
to share it? We can share it from here, from what you sent us.
Yeah, you could. You absolutely could, probably.
Can you do it, Rosemary?
Yeah. I hope. There we go. Can you see
Yeah,
that?
so, yeah, let me send you something else, just to make it a little easier, so you can actually see. Because that one's gonna be complicated for folks to look at. So click on this new one and share it. And it'll be a little bit easier to comprehend than what I sent you the first time.
The sign up one?
Yes. And then if you scroll down, it's real generic, last name, first name, last name, date of birth, phone number. And then if you want to know about our future events, and then what zip code you're in. And then from there, it will take you. We love our pictures. That's why you always got to scroll down. We really try to highlight people, especially our folks that are directly impacted.
That's great.
We're almost there. So right here, so you go to our voice, and then you click engage people. And then this is just saying, you reach out to formerly incarcerated or convicted individuals across North Carolina, spread the good word about rights restoration, and help our people register to vote. So then you just click get started. And I'm going to go through this just because you'll be able to hear it on my phone. You can hear. This is the message you hear when you dial in.
Welcome to Forward Justice Dialer. This is Co-Director Daryl Atkinson. Please stay on this call the whole time. Your phone number is protected and won't show up on caller ID. When you hear the music, go back to the web page where you saw the 877 number and click I'm dialed in.
Then
thanks for making calls with us.
Just click I'm dialed in. Okay. And so Rosemary, it may not let you do it just because you're not actually dialed in. Because this software, I tell you, it's a little bit too smart. So if it doesn't recognize your number, you won't be able to get to the next screen. So that's probably as far as we're going to get, actually. I hate that my computer won't. I've never had a problem sharing my screen, but I literally got this computer 2 days ago. So my other laptop gave up on me. So I had to get a new one. You know what? Let me try something. Let me try one more thing. Well, it's not going to work in time. So that's kind of what we've got. What I will tell everyone here, and I can make sure that Marcia gets this, if this is something you guys are interested in, is we have a virtual phone bank that we do every second Thursday of the month. And basically what that looks like is we get a group of folks that get on Zoom. I go through a live session of training, and then I go through a couple of usually between 5 and 10 phone calls live on Zoom, so folks can see what my screen looks like. They can hear me having the conversation going through our script, and it gives folks an idea of what it actually looks like. And then we have everybody mute, and everyone starts making dials individually. And the reason we do that virtually is one, we don't have to meet somewhere, but also because all the work's done from your computer anyway. So let's say you had an issue, you just come off mute, you say, hey, I need some help. And then I'm there to help folks as issues come up. And that's kind of the way that we've done that. And it's been real successful. We've been collectively making with about 10 people, we've made about 700, between $500 and $700 every week, consistently. And so far we've had some pretty intense questions starting out. And then once folks get into it, they're like, oh, this was so easy, I should have just tried. But typically, you know, we're that's only for an hour and a half a day. On that Thursday, we meet from 6 to 7:30 via Zoom, and it's really simple, I promise. You know, and I'm not just saying that by any means. I've found it to be very easy. So I don't know if we got time for questions, but I'll be glad to entertain.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. First of all, Jason, I'm so glad that you came and spoke to us today. A lot of really good information. I've done a lot of calling online, and I have to say that the dialer that I used wasn't as personable as the person that you all are using. It's like, sounds like a real person instead of a robot, you know?
Yeah.
So we need to open this up for questions to see if you have anything that you would like to ask Jason or anything on your mind. So please go down to the bottom of the screen and raise your hand if you have a question or a comment. Okay, George.
Hey, it's oh, I'm sorry.
George,
okay.
There you go. There you go. You got it.
When I'm tabling and someone says I can't vote because I'm a felon, what can I say to them? How I understand the law's changed, but what do you say?
So there's 4 things that are required for someone to be eligible to vote. And this is anywhere in North Carolina. They have to be a county resident for 30 days. They must be home from incarceration. And obviously, if you're talking to them, that's true. And then they must complete parole or any parole or probation. And the very last thing, which is probably also going to be true if you're talking to them, is that they're not adjudicated mentally incompetent. So as long as the biggest thing to pull from that, as long as they've completed their probation and parole, they're eligible to vote. That's the main thing. I've spoke with several people in the last 3 weeks that have told, I've heard stuff from, you know, I'm a registered sex offender, so I can't vote. The type of felony I got convicted of, I can't vote because of that. I've been told various different things from people that I've spoke to, and all those things are untrue. Now the sex offender thing is a little tricky because a lot of times if you think about a polling location, maybe at a rec center or a school or a church, which are places that sex offenders can't go. And what we've told people is we encourage those folks to vote by mail. Is what we've encouraged folks to do. So, because regardless, we believe that regardless, folks deserve an opportunity to voice their, to cast their vote, rather. I'm sorry. So that's kind of been our position. So I hope that answers your question, George.
John, are you going to say something? Sorry.
I was just going to say,
I'm sorry, I can't raise my.
You can't raise your hand.
Yeah,
Go ahead, John.
I can't raise my hand. I can't see if other people have, so I apologize for interrupting. But no, I was just going to say I've made several hundred calls myself, and as Jason said, it's very well organized. It's easy to do, and one thing I really like about it is a lot of voter registration efforts are just kind of out in the world, and they're useful and so forth. But a lot of times you're talking to people who already are registered, and they'll say that, and that's great. Whereas this program is focused on people we know are not registered, and so the potential impact is much higher. And so it just has a focus to it, and it has, as Jason said, hundreds of thousands of people that are probably not going to vote unless they get some information they need. So I find that very powerful.
Appreciate that, John. Appreciate the call.
Okay, thanks. Oh, sorry, Jason.
No, you're not. You're fine.
Jim and Ann?
What about fees? When they owe money, fines and that sort of thing, probation, they're off probation, but they still owe money.
So in just about 99.9% of the cases, if folks owe money, that money would be moved to a civil judgment, and then it's no longer a criminal issue. So once it moves to a civil judgment, they're able to register to vote. And that's almost always going to be true because that's just the way the criminal legal system does it. They're basically taking folks that owe, no matter what the money is. They're taking those fines and fees and putting them as civil judgments against people instead of waiving them or even keeping them on probation to pay it.
That's great. Marcia.
Yeah, Jason, a couple questions. So you and I've talked about this before. So the training for it to do the calls. So you said, like, if we did this on the second Thursday or whatever, that you do the training right there. And how long is the training? And then
so the training is only about I would say 10 to 20 minutes worth of the time. Okay. It really depends on questions. If I just go straight through it, it's about 10 minutes. Okay. If we stop and ask questions, which is expected, it goes to about 20 minutes. But that calls from 6 to 7:30. And the real reason for that is just to give people the opportunity to make calls while I'm still available on the line in case there are issues. Because you're actually making the calls from your phone, even though the computer is controlling what the phone does.
Okay. And then the other question is, so how many people so I think we talked about one of the ideas is to clean up those phone lists. Mm-hmm. Can you talk a little bit about that?
So what Marcia's referring to is that this list is 480,000 people. I can tell you that, I've made, I don't know, probably 1,000 dials. And if I would say 50 of those were probably disconnected numbers, wrong number. And then a few are folks that were deceased. So the idea is that not only are we trying to contact people to get them to register to vote, but the other side of this is we're trying to get good information for these people. So, let's say that, however it were to happen, we're trying to clean up the list so that when we do go canvass, for the folks that don't want to register on the phone, when we go and knock doors, we also have good addresses, and we're not just going to neighborhoods where we believe people are. Instead, we want to go to neighborhoods where we know people are. We feel good about this data. It's been really, really accurate. We've had a really great contact rate so far. We've got about, to my knowledge, there's about 20 folks consistently making calls every week, and we're seeing some really good contact rates from those 20 folks. So part of this is, though, cleaning up those lists so that when we go into community, we're actually touching people that are actually there.
Thank you for asking. One more question related to that. So then, so then you were talking about, canvassing. So you said if you did a canvass and you get a list of, like, 2 people get a list of 49 people or something to go out and canvass. Those are 49 people that we know live at that they are people eligible to vote and we know where they live. Is that right?
Yep, we know where they're at and they're eligible to vote. Now, what I'll say is when you get into the system, you'll see it'll say there's different tags for folks. So it'll say like Jason Hicks, 35-year-old male, directly impacted. And a lot of times it'll say something like likely eligible voter. And what that means is that I should meet all that criteria. The reason they use the word likely is because some of the data that we have is old enough, let's say the data is a year old. Well, in a year's time, it's possible that myself has committed some other offense of some kind. And through that, I have a new felony conviction that potentially I'm on probation for. And that's what it means by likely eligible to vote.
Mm-hmm.
So, but for the most part, I would say 90% and above of these folks that we're contacting are eligible to vote.
Okay, we have a couple of minutes left. We have a lot of folks that this is your new, your first call so far. So do you have any questions about Third Act, North Carolina?
I
Just
see
raise your hand if you-
I think Karen has her hand up.
I couldn't see it. It's like a light color.
You know what? I lit it up right when you started talking, so apologies. I just would like to know, how do we get into your second Thursday at 6 p.m. call? Is there registration through your?
It is just a link with a waiting room. I believe I'm going to change it to a registration. But I will send that to Marsha. Marsha, you want to be responsible for sending it out to folks?
Yeah, okay? I'll just put it with it. Yeah, we'll just put it with when we do the follow-up, we'll just send it out. Yeah.
Okay.
It'll be one of the links.
Yeah, it'll be a link.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm. Great.
I wanted to ask Jason if he has a minute before we ask people. Can you just talk a little bit about the voter ID law and the court case with the NAACP, where that's at?
Yeah, I can. We actually had a little
explain how Forward Justice is involved, and then
Yeah, sure. So Forward Justice is the lead litigation for let me start over. Forward Justice is known throughout the state and really the country for litigation. It's only recently, not due to me being there, I promise, but only recently have we started getting known for our organizing efforts, which is just speaks volumes of the tremendous team that we have. But so we've long done litigation, but so we are the lead litigation for the NAACP voter ID case that was tried in May of this year in federal court in Winston. The judge was Loretta Biggs, and the trial went really well. We felt like we put together a really compelling case, and right now where things stand are we are waiting to hear from Judge Biggs on her decision. And I found out today, as a matter of fact, in our staff meeting, that we expect a decision within the next 2 to 4 weeks on whether voter ID will stay or go. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with that. We believe, of course, we believe that we will win, and we believe that the plaintiffs, basically the State Board of Elections, is going to try to block and put a stay in place because they've stated already that they plan to file an appeal. But voter ID not being required at the election in November would not make it more difficult for people to vote. So it would make it easier. So we don't think that the judge will allow a stay. Basically, a stay would mean that whatever she ruled would not change because they plan to file an appeal. But currently, right now, as we all know, hopefully voter ID is required in the state. And, you know, we're prepared to argue an appeal if we do lose, but I do, excuse me, I do believe that we'll definitely win. We had some very good testimony from Dr. Barber, William Barber, Marcus Bass from Advanced Carolina, some state, or not state, but county board of election chairs. We heard from Ponder NC, their executive director, and we heard from several. NAACP state president, the High Point NAACP president gave testimony. So I think we put together like a really good case for what it looks like and the negative impacts that this voter ID's had across the state.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Well, we look forward to seeing you all next month on August 26th. And we're going to try out 6:30 again, 6:30 to 7:30. If you have any, you know, if you would like to tell us what time would be best for you, if this worked out for you well, or, you know, if you have any kind of comments about the roundtable, we love to hear from you. So thank you very much for coming, and have a nice evening.
Thank you.